Welcome to the Miracle Mansion podcast. My name is Markkus. I am Head of Treatment and Counselling and Aftercare at this wonderful place called Broadway Lodge, aka the Miracle Mansion. Today is the 9th of December 2024, and today is a special day, and today I have two very special guests that I don't want to lie, that I tricked into doing a podcast with me. So first things first, before I introduce them, I need to introduce somebody else. His name is Ashley Winter, and he passed away exactly a year today. And also, so this is his eulogy, isn't it? Yeah.
Order of service.
Order of service, yeah. Order of service at his funeral. You'll see that it's dated the 9th of December 2023 on there. Date of birth 13th of July 1970. And unfortunately, this is Ashley in not such good times when he was really, really struggling. And I also have a picture of him looking like the boss. This is his friend has posted that. James Foster Art posted a lovely picture of him, and I guess this is on the internet somewhere. This is another picture of Ashley, and this was Ashley coming during his treatment here at Broadway Lodge. This is him in the bistro, and I have to say that is an absolute gorgeous picture of him, isn't it? It's absolutely beautiful. Looks like a model. Anyway, I'd like to introduce you to Ashley's mother, Margaret, and Ashley's sister, Hayley, who've come in today to, we've done lots today, haven't we? So, we planted a memorial tree. Mum will tell you all about it. And we also, they've also done a share to the clients about their experiences of living with a family member who has addiction. And here we are at the end of the day, finishing off with this beautiful podcast. So welcome, ladies. Welcome to Broadway Lodge. Yeah. Thank you for coming, even though I tricked you with some bits. Yes. So how's your day been today?
It's been busy, but very enjoyable. It was nice to come back to Broadway Lodge. It's just over a year since we were here. We came to visit Ashley round about the end of November last year, and we saw him here just before he came home.
Okay, over to you. Tell me about your day today.
Okay, well, we came here to plant a tree in honour of my brother. Mm-hmm. We know that when he was staying here, he was very happy, and that he spent quite a few times out and around in the garden. My brother particularly liked birds, and so I knew he would gravitate towards the garden, and I think the sneaky little smoke at the same time. So we thought in his honour it would be really nice to plant a tree and a plaque to go with it. Yeah. So that's what we've done today. Yeah. And also speaking to the people that are staying with you here at the moment as well, and to just tell them the journey that we took with Ashley until he passed away.
Okay. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that journey. So what was it like for you?
At times, tough. All sorts of emotions. Yes, there were some happy times, but there were some times when, as a family, we were angry. I must admit, I don't think Ashley ever got angry. He always accepted, perhaps, that we were right to be angry with him. He knew he had a problem. But I think we felt perhaps a certain amount of guilt about getting angry, because we knew it wouldn't make any difference.
I think for me, at the start was feeling so helpless about everything. feeling that whatever we did, whatever things that we put in place, whether it was controlling his money so that he couldn't buy alcohol, whether it was getting a carer in every day to make sure that he wasn't drunk or that he wasn't going out and buying more drink, making sure that he was eating, whatever we put in place, the drink was always a step ahead, all the time. And as we learned over the 18 months from when we knew that he had a drinking problem, it was watching his physicality change because of what the drink was taking away from him, not just in his head what it was taking away, like the self-esteem. He was very depressed, but also watching him lose the ability on simple things like going to the toilet. That I would arrive some days and he would have soiled the bed. He would wet himself in front of me. And that's not to be horrible about him. Sorry, Ashley. But that's the reality of it. That is what it started doing to him. And, you know, there were days on his birthday, I remember going around and he was in a terrible state. Had soiled areas of the house and things like that, and thinking, it's just so difficult to watch somebody do this to themselves.
So, how did this all start? Tell me what happened. How did this all start?
I would say it goes back a long way. I think initially it goes back 20 years, maybe a bit longer. He was addicted to cocaine for a period of 10 years. At one stage, I didn't hear from him for 9 months. We both agreed that we wouldn't speak, and in fact we didn't speak for 9 months, and then a family member was taken ill and he did come home to see him, and we met. We hoped and made up our differences, but he was still using cocaine. But very shortly after that, he changed and he gave up the drugs. But looking back now, I think the drink replaced the drugs. Not to the same extent. I don't think he was drinking. I think he might have been a weekend drinker, maybe a recreational drinker, although he was never one for going to the pub. He would have been perhaps drinking in hotel rooms when he was on location. But looking back, that's when it started, possibly in a much smaller way, but I think the drink replaced the drugs.
Okay. So when you say location, what are we talking about when Ashley was on location?
Oh, well, he worked in lots of places. He worked in Prague, the Seychelles, I'm trying to think where else. Another place in Europe. But he lived in Cheltenham, but was working in studios in London. So Monday to Friday, he would stay in a hotel. So he'd spend most of the evenings on his own. So it was easy to drink on his own, maybe.
So what did he used to do for a living?
He was a film set designer, and very often he would oversee when the sets were built in the studio to make sure that they were built to his specifications.
And he'd been on some very famous film sets, hadn't he? Yeah.
I'm going to do my proud sister moment now, because he has been on lots of amazing films.
Yes, he has.
Worked. He'd been on Born Supremacy,
That's
which
correct.
is one of my favourites.
Yeah.
2 Harry Potter movies.
Yes.
Which,
Harry Potter.
Yes, Harry Potter. And in fact, we are very fortunate that he's given us 2 scripts to my daughters of the Harry Potter films that he worked on. So that was a very proud moment. He's worked on, what else has he been on?
Well, he worked on Cinderella. In fact,
that's
if you
right.
ever see the movie Cinderella, he designed the clock that struck 12. I think it took him 3 months to design it. It was on the screen for about 3 seconds, but it was still, he designed the clock in Cinderella.
But if you get to look him up, you need to just look up Ashley Winter as an art director, and you can see his whole CV of all the films he's been on, and it's quite remarkable.
Yeah,
He's a very talented guy.
It's on IMDb.
That's
Correct.
right. Yeah.
Correct.
It's on IMDb.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just tell me about Ashley when he was a child, growing up. What went wrong? 'Cause-
I don't think anything went wrong, really. He was a normal, active child. He absolutely loved Lego. Maybe that was why he was a film set designer. He built all sorts of things out of Lego. As a teenager, I think he was a bit of a loner. He didn't really go out to raves that much. Well, not that he told me about anyway. And he certainly didn't drink. He was never that sort of child at all. He was a bit grumpy as a teenager, I must admit. He was grumpy. But no, he had some good friends, not a huge amount of friends, but they were good friends. He was really never any trouble as a teenager.
So the reason why I'm asking this, and I'm kind of leading you in a particular direction, was there any childhood trauma? Anything big there?
No. I can say, obviously being brought up in the same family, we had two parents, they were working, we had a comfortable lifestyle. I wouldn't say we were spoilt, but we were very much loved. I would say we had the perfect upbringing.
Yeah.
There was nothing about our upbringing, there was
No.
just a very normal family.
And Ashley, when he was here, would have said exactly the same thing. He had a great upbringing, nothing wrong, no childhood trauma, loving parents, great family, nothing wrong.
No.
Absolutely nothing wrong. So how did this happen?
So about 3 years ago, my brother was working on a job. In fact, he was working on a job that he'd always dreamed of doing, which was the Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
So he was working at some studios in London, and he didn't feel well. Now, this was just around the COVID time, just after COVID.
Yeah.
And he just said he didn't feel right, and they thought he'd maybe had a stroke. But then they thought maybe he'd had COVID, so they did lots of tests. So they did brain scans, blood tests, etc. And they thought he initially had MS.
Right.
So they thought, so his fine motor skills, he's an artist,
Yes.
he's not a graphic designer, he's a drawer. He was really struggling with that. So they thought it was MS. So they did a scan on his brain
And a lumbar puncture.
Yeah.
And the scan came up that there were lots of lesions. So basically they looked like holes in his brain. Now I went with him to that scan, or one of the scans, and I could see that, although it's quite hard to understand it. But they asked him the question, have you had a severe head injury in your life? And the answer was no. He hadn't had anything. He hadn't had a severe fall. He'd never been involved in a road accident or anything. So further tests, they decided that he had something called small vessel disease, SVD for short. And that because of that, the blood was not able to be pumped around the brain as it should be. So he was struggling with the fine motor skills, slightly slower to process stuff. And there were obvious signs to him and to us that things weren't right.
So there was a deterioration in him.
Yes.
Yeah.
But at that point, we 100% believed the deterioration was just SVD.
Okay. How did that present itself?
He would walk with a funny gait. He would take longer to answer a question. He would sometimes be very tired. He would sometimes be very short-tempered. And sometimes he would find it hard to follow, like he used to cook.
Yeah.
But he stopped doing things like that, looking up recipes of cooking. So he started to do less and less. And be very down. very depressed.
So it really started to impact him. He wasn't the same as he was before.
No.
Okay. Well, how did that start to affect you guys as a family?
Well, at the beginning, it didn't affect us at all, apart from the fact that we were worried what the future held for him. Obviously, he loved his job, and if things got too bad, he didn't know. Well, he didn't want to do anything else. He wasn't trained to do anything else. But it gradually, he did change in as much that now we know he was drinking too much. Obviously, to take away the fear of what the future held.
I think Ashley was quite sensible at the beginning and said to me straight away, I need to sort out my affairs. He was real to not being in a position to be able to sort out his finances. So I was given lasting power of attorney. And I think initially there was a lot of admin to sort out. And I wanted to make sure that because he has a son, he has an 18-year-old boy, and I wanted to make sure that if anything did happen to Ashley, that he felt everything would be sorted out properly. And that was important to him. So that's how we started off, really, just supporting him more, because we were aware that this illness might take away some things that would obviously inevitably make him feel very down about life. And he wasn't working at this point, so he was at home all day, every day.
Right. Okay. When did you start to notice something was wrong where the drinking was concerned?
Fairly soon after that, I would say, but it was very difficult. The symptoms between SVD and being slightly drunk are very similar. The gait goes unsteady on his feet. It was very easy for us to believe that it was the SVD, and it did take a few months before we realised it was the drink.
I think I remember monitoring his bins one week, knowing his bins were collected every 2 weeks. So I would go round, take the bottles. I realised at this point he was drinking, but I didn't know. We had no idea how much. And in fact, even when we started looking at support for him, they were saying, how much is he drinking? We didn't know. You know, he was hiding the bottles in wherever he could hide them. So I got all the bottles out of the bin on a 2-week basis, put them all on top of the recycling box and took a photograph so that I knew what he was drinking and how much, and he was drinking straight vodka. Wasn't really eating an awful lot, so his weight wasn't very good. I think prior to that, we had an idea that it was a bit more of the drink than the SVD, but we didn't know how much. You know, was it 50-50? Was it mostly drink and not SVD? I don't think there was one moment where we realised that it was 95% drink. I think we realised he was in trouble when he was put into hospital in July 2021, 22? 22. He was put into hospital. He was being sick with dark coffee blood, and they said that he had severe esophagitis, and that was caused by drinking vodka, and that he had a stomach ulcer, again caused by drinking copious amounts of vodka.
How did that leave the family?
I think by the time we got that news, I think we knew. I don't think it was a shock. I think we just had to face up to it, that was the way it was. And I think it left me feeling a bit helpless, actually, because there wasn't a lot we could do. I did try persuade him to go to AA, and he did go a couple of times, but only twice. And he said it wasn't for him.
I think at this point he was still in complete denial. I don't believe he thought he had a problem, because when he went into hospital, my parents kindly gave him some money to get a magazine when he was in hospital. And the minute they gave him the money, he had taken his wires out from the hospital and walked down to Sainsbury's. Now, my daughter saw him in Sainsbury's buying a bottle of vodka. We weren't actually sure. We laughed at the time because we thought maybe Grace had got it wrong. We thought, no, he's in hospital. You know, how could he be down at Sainsbury's? And I went to the hospital straight away and told the nurses, and he had bought a bottle of vodka. So I think we knew at that point that the drink had started or was controlling him rather than him controlling the drink. I know he was in serious trouble, health-wise.
When did the whole him going to rehab start happening?
Then,
Like last
July.
Yes, July.
In fact, I had started to take him to a company called Change, Grow, Live, CGL,
Yeah.
and they had been giving him some sessions to preempt coming down here at Broadway Lodge. So I had started, I think, in about the June time, and then he had said he would come. I think he knew he was in trouble, really, health-wise, at that point. So he then came here. Then we got a place here.
What was that like for you?
Just a relief.
Relief. Absolutely. Relief. Because I think we knew that once he was here, that he was in a safe place. I don't think we actually thought too much about what would happen after, but while he was here,
Respite. That's how it felt. It felt like a respite.
We didn't have to worry about how much he'd been drinking that day or what we were going to find or, yes.
Yeah, going round and checking him regularly obviously had become a thing, and we had set up carers, but I think going round and wondering whether I would find him, you know, that photo you showed of him with his black eye, he'd fallen down the stairs. Again, he would say it wasn't because he was drunk, he would say it was because of the SVD. But not having that worry day in, day out was quite a relief. We were just,
If I could rewind that video a moment ago, and when I asked you both the question, what was it like when you got here? It was almost like it was really, you both went in unison. Relief.
Well, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. It's no different to somebody being seriously ill, and if they're taken into hospital, you think whatever happens, they're in a safe place.
So for
We
12
put our trust, I guess, in Broadway Lodge.
So for 12 weeks, did you sleep better?
Well,
my mum never sleeps
don't
better,
know,
so that's
don't ask me that. I'm not a good sleeper. You shouldn't ask me.
Wrong question.
I did.
Yeah. Okay. Mum didn't sleep.
No.
You slept
I
better.
did.
You slept better.
And I was able to kind of do a regroup of my own family.
Yeah.
Because in all of this,
Tell me about it.
I mean, well, not that Ashley was everything, but in this, I have, you know, my husband and I have 2 teenagers, and they were taking this journey with us. My eldest one would sometimes come round, and she would come and help with Ashley, and so would my youngest one. And I think it gave us a chance to regroup and reflect on everything that we've been through with Ashley.
So these kids got to see the true nature of alcoholism.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They both know.
Yeah.
Not so much from seeing Ashley drunk, because I don't think that happened, maybe once or twice, but the reality of the effect
Yes.
on the family.
Yeah.
I mean, and also at that point, I also told our daughters that Ashley had once been addicted to cocaine. So that also came out. We'd never said that.
Okay.
This is their Uncle Ashley.
Yeah.
However, I felt that that was part of the journey, and that they were old enough to know that now. So it also gave me a chance to contact Veronica, who is the mother of Ashley's son, and have communicate with her fully how he was getting on, because one of the things I'd had to navigate was I didn't really want Ellis, Ashley's son, seeing Ashley in the state he was in. That's not fair on him. So he hadn't seen him an awful lot in the 18 months previous.
Yeah.
Ashley had not wanted to see him for lots of reasons, obviously. And I think it gave us a chance to sort of catch up with them and just kind of a normal life for a little bit of time.
What was it like telling his ex-partner and his son? Because that must have been quite a challenge.
I think Veronica knew. I think she knew that there's a problem. They had been living together when he was using drugs. I'm not sure whether they were still together when he started drinking. I'm not sure about that, but she knew the problem.
Yeah.
And I think she shielded Ellis from it somewhat. But Ellis had seen Ashley a couple of times when Ellis had visited. Ashley had had a drink and had not been particularly good on the drink. One evening, Veronica said that they'd gone home. They decided they weren't going to stay, and she'd scooped Ellis up.
How old was he at the time when that happened? Do you remember?
Yeah, about 15, 16.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I think he had seen, he was aware of it enough.
Yeah.
Hard for anyone to hear that your dad is struggling in that sense.
One thing I will say, when Ashley was drunk, however drunk he was never violent. In fact, in some ways it made him quieter. He was never violent.
So you regrouped, 12 weeks, went round, sorted the house out, relaxed, got your family back together, and all of a sudden you get this call. You thought he was staying longer. You get this call saying that he's leaving soon. What happened?
So I did a big food shop. I made sure the house was clean and tidy. We arranged care for him at home because I wanted to make sure that he had the support. We all discussed what that would look like, who would pick him up. We came down to visit him here the week before, where he was great, really good, really positive, looked fantastic. And we arranged everything so that when he came out, it was as easy a transition for him. I asked him, what food do you want in the house? What else do you need? So we did what we thought would make an easy transition for him to come back home.
Now, I just want to say that we've jumped a bit because I was kind of skipping what it was like for him here because it was fantastic. He had a great time. He loved it.
He did.
Yeah, he loved it. He made friends, one enemy. But he just had a nice way about him, and obviously we were all very curious about his career and everything like that. And he was very coy with it. He boasted. I mean, he didn't. You know, he said a couple of things, and then we started to tease things out about him, etc. And then we was like, whoa, and him and I had a great, funny relationship. It was very, 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 very funny. We used to giggle and laugh together and spend a lot of time together, even though I wasn't his counsel, because as you know, Louise was his counsel.
Which was really nice for us to hear that he was giggling, because I've got to be honest, I don't think there was anything of that in the 18 months previous. We hadn't seen him very happy at all.
No.
There hadn't been any, I'm trying to think whether there were any times, Dad's birthday, we took him out, he was okay, but only just okay.
Yeah, it'd be fair to say that the joy had gone from his life.
Yeah.
The future didn't look bright. Yeah. It really didn't.
But but the drink had taken away so much more of him than that. It had taken away, it almost felt like it had taken away his soul. It was like it just wasn't him anymore.
Yeah. So 12 weeks here, great time, fun. I have to say, but because of small SVD, SVD, we had to work much slower with him in doing the work. It went in very, very slowly. And if I'm honest, I don't believe he was ready to go. And I've said to you this morning, it's one of the things that I've felt guilty about, that he needed more time. But for reasons, he wasn't able to stay longer, and regrettably he left and went home. You having done all that you could to put everything in place for him. What happened next?
My husband picked him up from here on the Friday at about 11:30, dropped him home. He said on the way home he was disappointed that he still didn't feel as he thought he might. I think it's fair to say that he then realised the SVD, that's how it was leaving him.
Yes.
100%.
Yes, there was no alcohol.
There was no alcohol.
No.
He didn't need a drink anymore.
Yeah.
This was his life. And my husband Andy dropped him back, and then I had arranged for Joe, his carer, to pop in at 1:30, so a couple of hours after he'd got back, and I got a video at 2:00, which was a video of my brother absolutely smashed. He could hardly walk, and an empty bottle of a litre of vodka.
And that's the video that he shared with me.
Yeah.
At the reunion.
And I had to then he had spoken to you, hadn't he?
I had spoken to him. He'd phoned me up, and his speech was a bit slurred, and I was surprised. I thought, he's only been home an hour, 2 hours maximum. And I thought, no, he hasn't been drinking. It can't possibly be. He must just feel overwhelmed to be home, because I asked him how he felt, and he said it feels weird. And I thought, just overwhelmed at being home. So I said, do you want me to phone you later? He said, no, phone me tomorrow. And that was that. That was the last time I spoke to him. Hayley then got the video of him drunk. And I must admit, I'm very glad I didn't know he was drunk, because I think I would have been very, very angry. And those would have been the last words I spoke. But that wasn't the case. That was the Friday afternoon. The Saturday, a neighbour saw through his window that he was lying on the floor of his sitting room. Called the medics, but it was too late. He had died.
And we didn't decide, they decided, because he died alone, that they needed to do an autopsy. We knew really what had caused it, but they did need to do that because he died on his own. And the autopsy showed that he had severe esophagitis that had not healed even in the 12 weeks here, and that an underlying stomach ulcer that he'd already been in hospital for in the July that year had burst, and he'd had a massive internal bleed, all down to alcohol, nothing to do with the SVD, medically.
Yeah, and that was a week off leaving here. It was as quick as that.
Yeah. He had drunk, I found out after that he'd actually ordered a credit card from here, from his bank. He'd gone online and ordered a credit card because I held the credit card. So I couldn't figure out what I thought would be okay, because he didn't have any means of buying anything and I'd already bought food, but he'd ordered himself a credit card and it arrived the day he got back, and he'd been out within minutes of being home and used that credit card. I have no idea.
Now, you won't believe this, but you won't believe this because you've experienced it, but in recovery, we call the disease of addiction cunning, baffling, powerful, and insidious.
It's all of that.
Yeah,
it is.
There you go. And if I remember rightly, he had said something to you about £20.
Yes. He phoned me on the Wednesday, knowing that he was coming out on the Friday, and he had his phone on the Wednesday, and said, "Can you send me £20 because Markkus had said that I can come back down next week, and that I need to go to
Aftercare.
Correct, aftercare."
Yeah.
And he said, "But I'll need." No, he phoned me Wednesday and said the aftercare is Thursday, day before he was coming out. "Can you send me £20 for the taxi? Markkus has asked me to get a taxi there." And so I sent him £20. But that £20 was for the drink when he came out, because he wasn't sure if his credit card was going to be ready or not. So I think he was already planning that, back to the cunning and everything else. Before he came out, because I spoke to you and you said no.
That's
not the case, but I'd already sent him the £20.
Yeah, that's not what I said. So we are a year later. How's the family? How's your husband, John?
He's fine. Yeah, we're all fine. We have our moments, but we talk about it. I think now we laugh a lot about the bits where we miss the bits when really we should have realised that there was a problem, and we just didn't. We were quite naive, I suppose, in some ways. But yeah, we talk about him a lot, and we miss him.
I think we tell the stories that at the time were quite traumatic, but now we look at them. You know, I was telling Mum on the way down here today, there's a big island and there's the range over the other side.
Yes.
Now, when he came to his assessment here...
I remember. Tell us the story.
Well, I rocked up to his house to bring him to the assessment here, and knocked on the door, no reply. I'd asked him the night before not to drink too much so that the assessment would go well here. So I knocked on the door, no reply, let myself in, and he was sat on the sofa, not ready. So we'd gone through everything the night before, need to be ready for this time, we prepared everything, he wasn't ready. And I spoke to him and he couldn't speak. It was like he'd had a stroke. So I didn't know what to do. Do I get him in the car to get him here? Do I go to the ambulance? Do I take him to the hospital, etc.? Anyway, finally I got him in the car. He was able to nod, but not say very much. He looked awful. That's the worst I've ever seen him. He was grey, he was sweaty, and I really was quite considerate about putting him in my car, but I did. So we drive from Cheltenham down to here. It's pouring it down with rain. He is sick in my car over and over again. We stop at the services, who are very environmentally friendly and only offer paper bags, which doesn't cut it when someone is throwing up because it just bursts from the car. Straight onto the floor, onto his shoes. He then wets himself in my car, adds to the sick. It's pouring down with rain. I'm thinking, right, 1 hour, I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
There's roadworks. 2 hours of delays. 2 hours later, we arrive here. I think I'm probably in more of a state than he is at that point. And I have to say, from being scared, that whole journey was probably the scariest journey I've taken, probably in my whole life, because I just didn't know if he was going to die in the car. He was so ill. He was so ill. And I fall out of the car here, literally. Lovely ladies who I've met today scooped me up.
Adele, yeah.
And Sam.
Yeah.
And
Sam,
so we sit him down and she says, I can't assess him. And at that point, I just lost the will to live.
Yeah.
I just burst into tears. And I said, I can't believe I've got him here and you're turning us away. And she said, no, I'm not turning you away. You need to take him down the road, give him a drink, bring him back. Which is exactly what Ashley did, funny enough. He just laughed. He actually laughed. I think probably the only time. He said, who'd have thought that? We arrive at the rehab place and they're saying to me, give him a drink. I'm like, so I give Ashley a drive down the road a little bit, and I opened the can. It was really strong cider, I think it was. And he looked at me and said, well, I bet you never thought that would happen. So he has half a can of cider, not his drink, as he tells me, and I see an improvement in him.
You notice a difference straight away.
Oh my God, it was like I'd given him medicine.
Yes.
I could not believe it
It's mad,
to this day.
It's absolutely wild.
No, bonkers. That he was still grey.
Yeah.
He wasn't being sick anymore. He was able to get himself out of the car.
Yeah.
So we go back, we do his assessment, but Sam said to me, you need to take him to A&E. He needs to be detoxed. Otherwise he's going to have a massive seizure. And she was very straight with Ashley and said, you're very poorly. So we get back in the car. He sits in all the mess that we've done on the way. And we get to the roundabout by the range. Bearing in mind, we are taking him to A&E now.
Yeah, because he's very, very ill.
Yeah, he's in withdrawal, is what I've learned.
Mm-hmm.
He's in withdrawal and he needs to go into detox within 24 hours. Otherwise, there is a strong possibility of it ending. Not well.
Yeah.
So we're driving home. She told me to get him a small bottle of vodka on the way home. Something else I was very uncomfortable with doing, but I do it. Get to the roundabout, and he says to me, can we stop and do some shopping for some bedding on the way home? I went, no, we can't. We are going to A&E. You are very poorly. But honestly, that's what he said. Like, yeah, let's go and do some shopping.
Wild. Honourable shout out to Nurse Sam and to Nurse Adele at that moment.
They were brilliant.
They calmed Hayley down and probably saved Ashley from having an absolute fit.
When he did that night, on the way home, I dropped him to A&E. I refused. They told me that I was to refuse him coming out. Sam said that she would speak to them. And he had a massive seizure that night, but safely in the hospital bed.
Yeah.
And that's when his detox started, that night.
So thank you, Sam, and thank you. I'll pass that card on to
Sam.
Sam.
Oh, yeah, please.
Funny enough, she lives literally down the road from me, so I'm going to drop it through her front door.
She was brilliant. I had no idea, really, what I was doing, except just getting him here.
What a scary journey.
Oh, it was horrible. Horrible.
And do you know what? If I could give you give you £1 for every family member that came here and brought their assessments, brought their family member to an assessment and experience. I had loads of money. Literally scary.
Yeah.
And us having to. I remember the days when we used to keep beer. We used to have drinks here because they were so ill. We couldn't let them go to the shop. We had to give it to them then and there to get them better. Otherwise, they might not even survive going to the shop. That's how.
And I think one thing that maybe in this whole journey was that we had no idea of that.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that when you start this journey with and somebody who's got an addiction, especially maybe alcohol, because I think the effects are different.
Alcoholism,
is that maybe helping the family members to know that's normal, to know that's what to expect, because we had no idea. And I think for anyone that is listening to this or has a family member that is like the deceit, the lies, the denial, the sickness, the soiling themselves is part of it all.
Yeah. So here we are today. We're here. We're at Broadway Lodge. We've planted the most beautiful tree today. What was it called again?
It's a Acer palmatum.
With the most, I wish I could just take our camera down and show you the most beautiful name. Honestly, when you sent me the picture of it, couldn't have been more perfect. Facing the house, so we did that today. We said a couple of speeches for Ashley, and I just want to say thank you so much. I can't even.
I've never seen Markkus lost for words.
I think you'll start us all off. I don't think anyone here, and in the whole journey that he took from when he got here, could have done any more, could they?
No.
He had the opportunity, and I think in Ashley's case, I just don't think there was enough light at the end of the tunnel for him. I just don't think he could see enough light. I don't think it's a lack of what anyone did for him, with him, supporting him. I just don't think he could see enough light anymore. He didn't want to live the life that the SVD had left him with. That's the reality of it. But the one thing I'm very, very grateful for here in the rehab was that if that's what he chose, and I will never know that, is that he chose it of sane mind, not under the influence of drink. He made that decision to take that drink that day. It wasn't controlling him. He made that decision. And I'm content in knowing that was the case.
Okay, thank you. I've never, thank you for rescuing me in that last moment there. I wasn't able to pull myself back together. It's been so lovely having you here today, but I just realised then it just caught me in the wind, when the, be careful because I can feel it coming again. When the wind sometimes catches the sails, that's how it just felt then. I just felt a gust of emotion catch me. So, anyway, I just want to say thank you to you both for coming down. Thank you for the donations from you both. And I just really appreciate you coming down and doing this. Like I said, it's been a very, very hard, for me it's been a very hard journey. Just so for you, the journey hasn't been long for me, but the journey for you must have been a lot harder to travel, and I really appreciate the love and the respect that you've shown us at Broadway, and also that obviously that you would show your son, your brother, and I have no doubt that I'm going to be calling upon you both a little bit more as time's gone. I can't even tell you how important it is for family members to hear this, that this is just normal. We have a family program that people come on